Welcome to this episode of Pen to Paper Press Podcast. I'm Cindy Coaches. There is a backstory weaved into each book. To explore the creative process, I am sitting down with authors, writers, editors, publishers, and an array of creative souls to have conversations centered around how they develop their stories to completing their works of art. Each episode is an opportunity for us to explore mindsets, pearls of wisdoms, and the experiences that began our journey as an author from the moment we put pen to paper. Elizabeth Kipp is a chronic pain specialist, yoga-informed addiction recovery coach, ancestral clearing practitioner, yoga and meditation teacher, and she is an international best-selling author of The Way Through Chronic Pain, Tools to Reclaim Your Healing Power. The title of her first book is Path to Inner Peace, a 90-day journal. And she is the co-writer in an array of collaborative book projects. Welcome, Elizabeth. It is so good to have you here and to speak with you.
Well, thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here.
You are very, very welcome. Chronic pain. It's one of those things that either you are very, very familiar with or you have an idea what it is. So to help people who have not experienced it or uncertain what it really is, do you mind taking a moment and sharing with us how you define what chronic pain is, just so we kind of set that baseline now at the beginning of our conversation?
I love that question. It's so important because most people don't know what it is, but the actual medical definition of chronic pain is any pain, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, any pain that's felt 15 days out of 30 for 3 months or more is chronic. The brain can't tell the difference between one kind of pain and another. It all sends the same signal to the brain. It hurts. Really, the brain can't tell the difference between a broken bone and a broken heart.
Really? Interesting.
So the grief experience, if it's felt for 15 days out of 30 for 3 months or more, is a chronic. And I'm on podcasts around grief because that's a subset of the chronic pain experience.
Yes.
So It's just kind of like a subset. There's all these different kind of, I'm also a betrayal coach, betrayal trauma coach. And that's another kind of chronic pain. That betrayal experience is another kind of chronic pain. So it's, there's a lot of different ways that it can show up. And why is it important? Because, by the time 15 days out of 30 for 3 months, 3 months starts, whatever the pain that the body, mind, spirit system is feeling, it changes the nature of the brain and the way the brain is perceiving the pain that it's getting. It creates chaos and brain fog in the brain. Like I can't think straight. And it also creates a very pronounced a accentuated negative mind where we're blaming others for everything, or we're blaming ourselves, or we turn that negativity inside of us. What's wrong with me? I must be being punished. Some kind of negative story. Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's what happens with the difference between acute pain and chronic pain. And then why is that important? Then before COVID, the numbers have just gone up since COVID, but before COVID, the National Institutes of Health estimated fully 25% of all of North America suffers from chronic pain across all socioeconomic measures, including children. So 25% of children suffering from chronic pain. And the World Health Organization estimates a fifth of the world. So it's this like silent epidemic, and this was before COVID, which has caused, the fallout from COVID and what everyone's been experiencing, isolation and so forth, has just accentuated of that problem.
I Part of me is like, I'm curious to know what that number is, but there's a nurturing side of me that's like, I don't want to go there because I am someone who feels, like I want to help, I want to fix, and that would be an overwhelming number. I'm certain it's a staggering number, because I don't think there's one person that has not been affected. Everybody has been affected in some way. So
yeah, we're really feeling it as a collective on the planet. No doubt.
Oh yes, most certainly, and it's everywhere. It's not just in the United States. It's not just in Europe. It's everybody.
A piece of this is that, at least in America, doctors in medical school, just generally, I'm not going to say 100%, but generally are not taught how to handle chronic pain. So there's an opiate epidemic in the country, and now they've got their hands tied and can't be prescribing opiates except in very extreme cases, unusual cases.
Okay.
And so doctors really don't know. They're getting better. They're not really taught about chronic pain, and once those changes happen in the brain, we need to bring healing modalities that heal those changes. And opiates don't do that.
No,
opiates don't heal those changes. They're, in my opinion, they're helpful for acute pain, say like a kidney stone. I actually had a kidney stone once, and I was really grateful. They gave me a shot of Dilaudid, and I was really grateful because I kind of ended up in the emergency room with the pain. That's kind of all I needed at the time. But I was prescribed. I was a chronic pain patient for over 40 years, and I was prescribed opiates and benzodiazepines, which is anti-anxiety medicine, for 31 of those years, because their only answer was opiates and benzos. That was their answer. Until I finally found someone in Dr. Peter Prescott who studied chronic pain. He wrote this book, Conquer Chronic Pain: An Innovative Mind-Body Approach.
Okay.
And that is the companion book to my book.
Okay.
The Way Through Chronic Pain: Tools to Reclaim Your Healing Power. He wrote this, and then I wrote this because I went through his program. And this is kind of the patient version of that with my own journey. So there's books out there about by doctors. Dr. John Sarno is another one he's passed away. Both these doctors have passed away. John Sarno wrote a book called Healing Back Pain, and he understood this kind of integrated, looking at the patient as an integrated person, and that opiates were really not the answer. An opiate, what it does is it will numb the pain in the nervous system for a while. And but it also depresses the respiratory system. So we can't oxygenate and release toxins, which is like 70% of the waste out of the human body comes out of the breath by weight. 70%, you'd think it would be something else. It's not.
Interesting.
Comes out of the breath. So it depresses the respiratory system. It freezes the digestive system. It dries up the mouth, so you can't even, those important enzymes in the mouth that begin the digestive process, they're not there. And then the peristaltic action of the intestine gets shut down because of it. So there's that piece. So it dehydrates us. So we're not able to, we need more water. So how are any of those things healing? Right. Yeah. So you can see that for a little while, how it would be helpful, or maybe at the end of life, if there's a cancer situation, that's just, that kind of thing, but not for like, I had back pain and they just assumed I wouldn't heal. They never asked the question because they didn't have the training. They didn't never ask the question, why isn't Elizabeth healing? And when I met Dr. Peter Prescott, he asked that question. he understood.
Interesting.
He understood that, and he wasn't really interested in my X-rays or anything else. I had a back injury that caused my low spine to become unstable, and I needed a lot of surgery, and that's when all the pain medicine began, and it just got worse and worse as time went on. And it turned out for me, in the end, I ended up having this thing called hyperalgesia, which is a condition where the opiate itself causes pain. So these medicines can turn around and bite you.
Wow.
The way that and they can give you more of what you're taking for in the first place. The benzodiazepine, which most people know as an anti-anxiety medicine,
Okay.
that's the same thing. I took it because my pain level was so and I got my nervous system. I was so reactive to the pain that I was feeling that they gave me those, and it calmed me down for a while. And then I started having panic attacks and not understanding why. As because you're not supposed to be on benzos for a long time. There's no research on them for a long time. Doctors put you on them for a long time, but there's not a data on that. So it's kind of off label. And I'm not the only one. This is a thing that we see in the community of people that take anti-anxiety medicine. If they've been on it for longer than the label, the research is for 2 weeks off and on over a 2-week period. Anything beyond that is not researched. So it's kind of off label.
That's just mind-boggling. Obviously, I've not contended with any of that, and you are truly giving me an education. And it's like, wow, you're opening my eyes to an aspect, and now I truly do have a better understanding of why it was important for me to ask you for that definition of what chronic pain is. When I sit down to write out, questions, or when I, just before the interview, I like, okay, what are the things that I want to ask? And it's, it comes to me through intuition and stuff. And it was really made predominant clear to ask, what is chronic pain, so that people had better understanding of what it is, and get a better understanding. And with you sharing all of this information, it's like you're taking me down a journey of having a deeper compassion and understanding of what those who are experiencing what you have and continue. I'm assuming this doesn't just go away.
Yeah, it did. I went into Dr. Peters' program after 40 years. I was in his program for 50 days. I walked in with 40 years of chronic pain, and I walked out 52 days later with no pain. And
really?
I'm still free from it.
And then your book is in the layman's terms and not as technical. So
that's right.
So that is the catalyst for why you wrote your book then, was you didn't want to keep this a secret.
No, it wasn't just me. It wasn't like I was some kind of aberrant outrider.
No.
I have a science background as well. And so I understand kind of research and I sat at his program. He had a 94% success rate. It was astonishing. And his patients were just like me. They called us hickory nut cases that doctors couldn't crack. Right?
Okay, I was going to ask why hickory nut, but yes.
Yeah. But the other thing that's interesting about chronic pain, in the holistic model, you can't separate mind, body from spirit. So what you do to one, you do to all. Right. And so, as I said, the grief experience, which can be a kind of a lost night of the soul, the spirit, can journal over into emotional. We know that's the emotional pain too, but it can also transform into chronic pain. Into physical pain. So emotional pain can turn into physical pain and spiritual pain, and physical pain can turn into emotional and physical pain and spiritual pain. They're all kind of interchangeable. So it's not just about a physical pain thing. There's a lot more wrapped up in it.
Yeah. Because we are all, it's all connected. When we, like you said, when we adjust one, it affects the others. Or when one is, off balance, it can have a domino effect.
Absolutely.
And yeah. How long has it been that you've been pain-free then?
It's been since September, so it would be November of 2013.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. Amazing. It's quite remarkable. And so I wrote my book for chronic pain sufferers and those who care for them, doctors, nurses, family members, and friends. It offers proven techniques to clear pain and live a life free from suffering from a former chronic pain sufferer, me, who searched the globe for answers and found them. So I really tried to bring in what it sounds like, what the inside voice of a chronic pain patient really sounds like, because from an observer's point of view, a chronic pain patient is either quiet and doesn't ever complain or complains all the time. There's really not much of a middle ground in my experience. And I've sat with thousands of them over the years because I've been in and out of hospitals and physical rehab facilities, just trying to get my body back together, doctor's offices, over 4 decades. And we all have this in common. It's quite remarkable. In science, we're always looking for the pattern, right? Well, what's the pattern here? And one of the patterns is this thing. We're either really quiet or we complain all the time about everything. That's not the true voice. That's not the true voice. What's really going on is this whole other conversation, which I talk about in my book.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions to be asked there. What I would love to do is I would love to explore your writing process. So I love your immediate reaction to that. So when you sat down and you've got the catalyst to why you want to write it, in your heart you have a story to get out there, you have information that you want to share. So did you just sit down and start plucking away at the keyboard and have it like there, or did you you're in the science background, so you did a lot of research. I can already tell that. Or was it something that you worked on for a little bit and then didn't work on it for a while, or you know what I mean? You just kind of dabble with it for a while, or did you just sit down and type it out?
Well, it wasn't quite either one of those. It was
okay.
And I I put it out as a mission for myself. And I'm very persistent. I have that ability to stay with something for a while. So a kind of persistence turns into devotion, right? Persistence, discipline, devotion is kind of how it works for me.
Okay.
The interesting thing was, in this book, I talk about the tools to reclaim your healing power. The tools that I was taught and that I discovered that helped me clear the chronic pain that I was experiencing. And what happened to me while I wrote the book was I had to use all the tools.
Yes.
Remember, I told you that this book came out in, I think it was 2019, and it took me 5 years to write.
Okay.
And when I started it, when I first I got it written, and in about 3 years, and it was 70,000 words, and I put every single word in there consciously, every single word. And I had difficulty because, remember, I told you that a chronic pain sufferer has a very pronounced negative mind. And when I healed from the chronic pain, I didn't have the physical pain anymore, but I still had the negative mind, and I had to clear that. So as I'm
Okay.
writing this book, I'm hearing my negative mind come in and say, nobody wants to hear what you have to say. And, like, you won't even be able to figure this out. You're not going to be able to put this down the way you feel it. And I mean, there was a lot of negative chatter in the mind. And I really had to get very quiet. I'm a yogi. I have a yogic practice, and I had to get very quiet and go into meditation and still do, breath work. And I had to still the mind. And then I would come and sit in front of the keyboard, and I would get very still, and I would kind of wait for what I call a download.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're going to write about this part today. And then that would kind of come in, and I would just start typing, and I'd, get the certain part into it, and I'd maybe get a little bit stuck, and I'd stop and breathe, and I'd hear that voice come in and like, yeah, you can't say that way. And I'm like, oh man.
Yeah.
There's this ebb and flow and this give and take, and a lot of I had to learn how to be soft with myself and calm, tame the inner critic, which is a whole exercise in my book, how to tame the inner critic, right? And I really, I really felt held by Dr. Peter had died. Dr. Peter died about a little bit after I started the book, and I felt his presence. I would hear his voice say, "Get out of your mind," because I would hear him say that, because
I love it.
Come from the heart, and to get out of the analytic, because he knew I was a researchery person, and I had this get out of your mind and get into your heart. I would hear him say that. Okay,
I love it. That's great. Yes.
So he kind of wrote the book too, right? So I ended up with 70,000 words, and as I said, I put every word in there consciously. By the time, I read it, I was like, "This is what I want to say," and I got with my editor, Robin Fritz, who's got a long, history, 35 years in the editing business. And she gets a hold of the manuscript, and she says, "You got to cut this 35,000 words. Nobody's going to read 70,000 words." And I was like, "What?" And this is what I said, was so funny. This is what I said. Well, I said, "Robin, anybody that's got chronic pain will read whatever they need to if they really want the answer."
Yes, they will.
And then I said, I put every single word in there consciously. And she listened, and she said, "Well, this is your book, Elizabeth," so she gave me, her best advice from, her editing world. And I respected that. And so I sat with that information for a while, and she helped me do what I call a structural edit, which is, we don't really need this chapter, and we need to put this chapter here. When the information in this chapter, we can put it in that chapter and take that whole chapter out, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And by the time we were done with the structural edit, it was 35,000 words.
So you did get to cut it then.
It was really interesting. Yeah.
That is wonderful that you were able to do that and not feel like, because what's the Stephen King line? It's like, kill your darlings, meaning let go of the elements of your story that doesn't fit or doesn't belong there. And that's hard. As a writer, like you said, every word, they're supposed to be there. But to have somebody who can help you to see, oh, if we move this here, and it's like this alchemy, and then it's like, yeah, that's to lose 35,000 words is, that's quite the task.
It's a great exercise, as I said. There's, in the yoga world, there's the 10 virtues of yoga, the yamas and niyamas, and one of the niyamas is aparigraha, which is a long Sanskrit word which means not clinging, right? And I had a chance in that exercise to practice not clinging. Mm-hmm. And I also had a chance when Robin said that, because of her expectation, I bow to the teachers that are before me, right?
Oh,
I
yeah.
was like, she's saying that for a reason. Why don't you consider it? Even though I was like, well, wait a minute. I did that because I meant it, kind of thing. and I meant it in the moment, but this was a new moment. Robin, by the time I met Robin, I was in a new moment. And it allowed, and because this moment is this moment, and this is the moment of possibility, everything in the present moment is where we do the cooking, the creating, right? But not the past, not the future, but in this moment. And so I just kept staying in the sandbox with Robin, working with this work in the present moment. And we just kept mixing and matching and putting and cutting and pasting and whatever. And we ended up with what we ended up with. And it was interesting because I did really practice that principle of not clinging and remembering the audience that I was pointing at and how I could serve them instead of kind of I did this and I meant it, instead of staying in that place, I kind of, what do we need? What would serve the audience the best? And that's kind of how we did the process. And when my ego got in the way and in other ways, like, well, this isn't going to be good enough. And I was, oh my God, I was just like, thank you for sharing. Now go sit over there.
That's so funny you say that, because of the fact that a lot of people that I know that do that inner critic work, that's exactly what they tell their inner critic is, you go sit over there. I heard you.
Yeah.
You said what you said. Now go over there and let me do my thing. And it's like that way that they can separate, that interior voice that's like so destructive, so demeaning.
I have a trauma background at this point, which I don't talk about too much in the book, but all the voices we have are there to keep us safe.
Yes.
They came on board at a time when we needed them to keep us safe. So when I say thank you for sharing, I'm saying thank you for sharing and keeping me safe. I don't need you right now.
Yeah.
Right? So that there's no bad voice in there. There's just ones that maybe are not needed in this moment.
I love how you keep bringing back in this moment. And it is a phrase that you've said a lot. That is not always easily practiced, because it's easy, or easier, maybe that's the more appropriate word, to look back and to be in the past and to reflect on the past and to utilize the past. And then, of course, we've got the future, where we look at it with either anticipation or with great angst and fear.
Exactly. And this is the core of chronic pain. And we're not listen, anybody that's a chronic pain person that's still suffering with it, has an argument with the present moment. And I was one of those people. And so, I didn't want to be in this moment. And so I would, I want to be in the future when it's this way, or I'd rather be in the past when it was this way, or, oh, I remember this, I was like this in the past and it was horrible. And, oh my God, or, oh, if it's going to be like this in the future, will I be able to manage? And it's just not a healthy way to live. And the thing is the healing does not happen in the past or the future. It happens right here in this moment. And so what are we doing with this moment? And so Dr. Peter Prescott in his program that I was in, he asked this question, and it floored me at the time, because I was sideswiped by it. He said, this is a room full of 20 people like me. And he said, what are you doing to contribute to your pain?
Oh,
I know. And I said, and the first thing, because it was very reactionary, I had this very reactionary response. It was like, what do you mean? It's doing it to me, right? And I was just like, wow, dude, you've just asked a question. You just set off a bomb in this room. And, you're looking to get killed in this room? Because those are fighting words, I was like, wow, he's got a lot of nerve, bringing that question in. Anyway, that was all a conversation in my mind when he put that question. I didn't say anything. I said it in my head, but he had the room, and I knew he had the room for a reason. And he was a doctor. He studied this stuff, and he knew stuff I didn't know. So I sat there quiet, and I realized, oh, there's a whole bunch of stuff I'm doing that's contributing to my pain. And part of it was this not being in the present moment, was this future tripping and hanging out in the past and dragging the past into the present moment. This moment that we're in is absolutely a blank slate unless we bring the past in or bring the future in. It's blank, right? Unless we're going to bring our conditioning in, which we do. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying it's simple to not bring the past in, because our conditioning, we're always comparing this moment to that moment. We tend to, well, not always, but we tend to do that. And this is why we have a meditation practice to keep us in the present moment, in this stillness, in this non-judgmental place. Yeah. And having that practice for so many years served me really well, because when I got to this book and I ran into Robin, and she's like, hey, you got, twice as many words as, people want to read. And I'm like, well, and I didn't like it at first, but I considered it, and I was able to make a readjustment because I had this ability, right, to adjust what's happening now in the present moment. Oh, this is happening now. Not like then, not in the future. I'm right here. Let's take care of what's right here.
Yeah. I could see where this approach would be challenging, and yet I don't want to say liberating, because that's the incorrect word, and not freeing. Maybe it evokes an awareness of where we're at. And I am someone who, I still grieve. I have a lot of grief. And I find myself there quite easily. In a couple of months is the 5th anniversary of my son's death. And, so I'm sitting here thinking, so when I'm in that state of grief and trying to pull myself out of it, I've learned to allow myself that, because if I bottle it up, it'll brew.
Not only that, but if you're in it, why are you trying to pull yourself out of it? Why not allow yourself to just be in it, accept yourself where you are? Oh, yeah, this is where I am. I'm going to breathe right here, and I'm going to just stay present in the breath and let the body take all of this that I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Maybe feed the story about, but really allow the body to feel. And it's just my experience that when I can drop my story about whatever it is that's showing up in this present moment, the experience is a good one. I'll give you an example. When I can drop my story, the suffering ends. And I'll give you an example. 2 weeks ago, 3 friends of my life died, 3 friends that I knew well. They died all different reasons. None of them had to do with COVID, by the way. It was just weird. And it was very intense. And I'm still grieving for them. Well, and what I noticed was, I noticed how it feels in the body. I can still feel it when we bring it up. It feels like contraction in the body, and kind of heat and tension in the chest area, and a little bit in the heart, maybe a little bit in the upper arms. And I can feel a little bit in my throat up into my ears. So it's this sensation, right? And I noticed, remember, I have this practice of parigraha, and I noticed, oh, I'm suffering. And so I'm asking myself, instead of sitting here playing the victim going, oh, woe is me, which I can do, that's part of it. The next thing would be, what's the gift in this experience? What is there a gift in this for me? And the gift is, oh, you have a lesson now aparigraha, right? And you're clinging. Well, why are you clinging, Elizabeth? Because this is really difficult. Well, why is this difficult? Because something significant has happened.
Mm-hmm.
Something significant's happened, and it makes it difficult. Okay, something significant's happened. Can you sit with the difficult? Yes, I can. This is part of the human experience. Can you give yourself permission to sit with it without pushing against it? Because I can fight with just about anything. Being a chronic pain person, I'm getting a fight with it, but that's resist. I've learned to not do that. That was part of the teaching as well, was just, I'm accepting myself in this moment. And right in this moment is really uncomfortable. And that's okay, because something significant has happened. Yeah. And I'm learning. The other side of that is, from kind of a spiritual point of view, is who am I to say when my friends are going to leave the planet? I'm not in charge of that.
No,
I'm not in charge. As much as I would like to be, I'm not. Right. So that's kind of the other piece that kind of balances the equation there for me.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, can I allow myself to be here? And where is my power? My power is in my own suffering. And my power is not in when people transition. I don't have power there. I have power in my reaction to it and my attachment and that stuff. And that's my journey in this moment. And it's been a couple of weeks and I'm still in it, and that's okay. I'm noticing and allowing, and I'm not beating myself up for it. I'm just saying, oh, well, this doesn't feel good and it hurts and it's okay. Can I breathe and allow it? And can I find some ease in the breath through this journey? Yes. To change this from suffering to just, this is a difficult moment. It doesn't necessarily have to be this heavy, ripping feeling in my body, right?
Right.
How much am I clinging on?
That's interesting. Because I was going to say, you're really giving me a lot to put together and to sit with. And I would say in this moment, and I say that with much respect and an appreciation for such a strong reminder. Where am I? Am I in the moment? Am I sitting in yesterday's soup, or am I swimming too fast for tomorrow? Where am I? One question that I have, because your book is very, you have a very targeted audience. You're not trying to reach the masses and trying to hit every genre you can think of. And so when it came to promoting your book and marketing it and getting out there with your book, was it an easier process because you knew exactly that person that you're reaching out to? Or did you find that it was more of a limitation because you were focused at that one particular group of people?
Well, I think 25% of North America and a fifth of the world is not a small audience.
No.
It's a lot of people to market to, right?
Yes.
And so I really haven't, the marketing part of it hasn't been as, the promotion and the marketing hasn't been as, I haven't spent as much attention on that as I would like to. I work it on social media. I had about 450 people. I kind of, because as I was writing the book, I was putting little bits on social media and people were, that's interesting. I want a copy of that. And I collected all those names. And so I've sold plenty of books, but I still have to sit with AdWords on Amazon, figure out how to do Amazon ads and stuff like that. And I didn't really have the money to hire a marketer or a book promoter person. I just didn't have the money. It was enough to, spend the money on the editor and the text setter and the book cover guy and all that. So I was just like, I only had so much money. So I kind of depend on social media, and of course it's on Amazon, but people catch me on social media and in podcasts and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
or on my website, and they can get the book from my website, elizabeth-kipp.com, or they can go to Amazon. And I could spend some time doing the Amazon promotion stuff. It's not all that difficult. I just haven't taken the time. So
there's a lot of overwhelm. A friend and I were talking about this earlier this morning, that she's noticed a tremendous amount of overwhelm and overload. Because so much is changing structurally. You name whatever area of your life, good chance it's being rearranged, and we're becoming more aware of things. And there's a lot of people who are contending with overwhelm and overload. And, you get to a point where you need to just kind of sit back and like, okay, I know that I'm aware that I need to do XYZ. Like in your case, I need to sit down with Amazon and figure out the tag words, the SEO. How do I want to proceed with this? How can I expand my audience? But I like the fact that you're allowing yourself that time to sit back and say, I will do this when I'm ready. And not like, oh my God, I can't believe I haven't done this yet.
Oh, yeah, well, that wouldn't be optimal. That's kind of the opposite of what I'm going for in recovering from chronic pain. Dr. Peters said when I left the program, he said, you're a recovering chronic pain patient. Make sure you take care every day. You have to use the tools every day. And some of that is like, I'm living within the capacity. What's the next right thing for me? I open my day up and I divide my day into thirds. 8 hours in bed. I may not be asleep for all those 8 hours, but I'm asleep or meditating, one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
8 hours at my job and 8 hours at my recovery, which is kind of my personal, taking care of myself,
Right.
self-care. That's how I divide the day. And it's I don't always hit that marker, but that's what I go for. And because I've taken Dr. Peters' suggestion to heart. He gave us a prescription. Take care of yourself, use the tools every day. Okay, got it. Every day for the rest of your life, he said. So that's the deal. I don't want to go back into chronic pain. So
no.
And I work with people now in recovery that are either suffering with chronic pain or in addiction recovery that find themselves in chronic pain and don't want to take medication. So I work with those people, and I also do ancestral clearing, which is just all for that population, but for everybody. And that keeps me pretty busy. That clientele keeps me pretty busy. And the website stuff and the promotion is pretty much secondary to that. It's like, oh, if I get a lull in my business, boom, in my, in all the clients and stuff, I'm happy to step into that. Yeah.
Yeah. Clients first. Well, you first, then clients, then the website.
There you go. Yeah. So, I mean, I get the websites up and going and functioning, but the book promotion is not on my front burner. And it feels to me like enough people are finding me and finding the book that I have my hands full. So I'm like, I think whatever I'm doing is working. It could be more. I could be more prominent on Amazon. I'm just not. And I know that. It's another marker I can put out there to hit one day.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Is there a bit of advice that you have for a writer who is looking to do a piece that is coming so strongly from their, interior calling, such as your book? What would your bit of advice be for them?
I would suggest to get very still. Get very still. Get familiar with the stillness in you. and write from that place.
Yes.
That's what I did. I just literally, it's kind of interesting. I would get very still and the words would just start coming in. And I would look at my writing and go, where did that come from? It was interesting. So a very co-creative process between whatever that energy is that's in the stillness, the creator, consciousness, whatever you want to call it, and, my personality, this beautiful blend. So, and it's a very easy place to write from, the stillness, because the information just kind of like comes in and you just write. And it's when the ego comes in and goes, nobody wants to read that it becomes a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
My ego has an opinion about everything.
Yeah. Ego is good for that. But again, like you mentioned earlier, there's a reason for that voice. It does help keep us safe. It does help us keep us alert and not in a sense of, the word that came up was lackadaisy, but it does help to keep us alert. So, and aware. And
well, it also gives us a sense of humor because it's hilarious sometimes the things that come in. I'm like, what? What did you say?
Oh, I'm going to have to twist that. And yes, when I start hearing some of that I'm just going to have to twist it to being humorous versus critical. Oh, I like that. I like that. That's a great idea.
I actually did a remake on my inner critic. I got to a point where I just got it's in my book. At the end in the exercise, I got to a point where I was just like, you know what, inner critic, you're getting a makeover. And I totally gave it a makeover, like what she wore, her hair, what she smelled like, the kind of food she was eating, her location, all that stuff. And then I finally got all that done. And I was like, oh, what does she sound like? Right? All 5 senses and then environment. And then what does she sound like? And I thought to myself, well, she sounded like a Supreme Court judge for a long time. Like this stern, like always making a judgment kind of thing. And and I said, well, how could I change that voice? And I thought, let's make her a comedian. And I thought, yes. Well, who do I know that has an opinion about absolutely everything and is hilarious? And I thought of Joan Rivers.
That was exactly the person that came up to my mind when you started to say that. Yes.
So I got Joan Rivers in my mind now. She's the one that's the voice that talks to me, and it is hilarious. So I don't take myself so seriously anymore.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. That's so wild. Because as you were saying that was the name that was just popping in my head, like, I could do that as Joan Rivers. That's right. I could change her voice. Yeah. Because she had a wicked sense of humor, but it was truthful though.
Yeah, she had a comment about absolutely everything.
Everything.
Extraordinary. It was just like, wow, she just had absolutely full, she had a full stage there that she spoke to.
Yes, she did. Oh my gosh. Oh, I love it. Oh, that's great. You mentioned your website. It's Elizabeth-Kipp, and the Kipp is Kipp. And I will have that on the show notes page on the website for the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. We have to, ElizabethKipp.com is amazing. She's a web designer and a photographer, and she's really good at what she does, but she's not me. So we have to put the dash in there between Elizabeth and Kipp to get to my website.
Yes.
So that's what that is. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing is I noticed I went on to Amazon prior to sitting down here with you. And I noticed that there's another Elizabeth Kipp that's an author. I will have your book covers on the show notes page. And also when you're looking on Amazon to look for the topics around the chronic pain and the internal healing. I noticed that you did a lot of collaborative book projects, and you are in several books that several of my friends have also participated in. It's like, oh, I recognize that cover. I recognize that cover. I recognize that cover. And I thought, what a small world.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So my middle initial is R. So Elizabeth R. Kipp. I don't know if there's any other of those, but yes, I have been in a bunch of different books, and my most recent is the Ancestors Within, which is a 4-book series, which I'm just literally today starting the writing for the 3rd book. My chapter, it's really cool because each book is 25 people that are in the ancestral healing arts, specifically the ancestral healing arts. So I'm an ancestral clearing practitioner as part of what I do. And so I've had a chapter, and I'm going to hopefully have a chapter in each of the 4 books. But there's the fact that there's 25 people in the ancestral healing arts that are writers that want to share their stories and their tools is pretty phenomenal. So it's quite an interesting group. And this particular volume is about ancestral gifts. And I have a lot of ancestral gifts, but the one I'm going to be talking about is I have, like, most people have a green thumb. I've got like 10 green fingers. I have mad skills with plants. It's just,
I love it.
And I just didn't make that up. I came in with that. So I'm writing about that.
I love that. So with the book collaborations then, how did you get into doing them?
Well, I started with, I had a friend on Facebook that put a call out. She wanted to, it was a book called Women of Social Media, which wouldn't be one of my strongest books, but it was my first collaborative book. Okay. And she wanted women to, again, it was 25 women that came together to tell their story of, I don't even remember the story I told on that one. I think it might have been the one about, can you love yourself now? Which was a story of finding self-love, right? And here, I have this heavy inner critic, so I had quite a journey with that. So I had plenty to say about that. So I wrote a chapter on that. So I found people through the Wellness Universe. I found my book promotion people. I found them through the Wellness Universe, right? As I say, I curried a pretty good Facebook audience, and I met. Oh, that's the other one. Brave Healer Productions is who the Wellness Universe has done some collaborative book studies with Laura DeFranco through Brave Healer Productions. So I've done collaborative. That's where the Ancestors Within sits in that wheelhouse.
Good to know. Good to know. Well, Elizabeth, it has truly been a very, very educational, very educational podcast. And I am so appreciative of this conversation. I truly learned a lot. And Joan Rivers, yeah.
Bless her soul. She lives on,
Yes, she does.
Inner critics. Yeah, she's amazing. Yes, thank you so much for this opportunity to be in front of your listeners and to be able to share you with my listeners. I'm excited for that. So thank you so much.
You are so very welcome. Before we end our time together, I'd like to say thank you for listening to my conversation with Elizabeth Kipp. To access her website and purchase the book she has written, visit pentopaperpress.com/podcast and select the show notes page for this episode. What is one takeaway you received from this conversation? Have you given your inner critic a makeover? Is it something you've thought about doing? Whose voice do you hear when they speak? Drop by the show notes page for this episode and let us know. This episode is sponsored by the Women Health Circle, a transformational online health community for women. I'm a member of Rachel Kiefer's group coaching program, and I love her approach to nurturing our precious bodies. Learn more at healthnutgirl.com. Again, her website is healthnutgirl.com. To receive future episodes in your inbox, subscribe to the newsletter and follow this podcast on your favorite applications. You are invited to share your favorite episodes with individuals you feel will resonate with the content. Take care, and until next time, keep your pen to paper and write. Your words have power. Your story matters. Bye for now.